the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Welcome in. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. This show is brought to you by DraftKings. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard in Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino, and a huge show lined up today over the next 3 hours as we have the national title game tonight in men's college basketball. UConn laying 7 against Purdue, recapping the women's national title game from yesterday, the final week of the NBA as well, and an absolute bombshell from last night, Paulie, to begin the show today that came out of absolutely nowhere. I have no idea how many people actually saw this thing coming, probably zero, until there was steam late last night, and it's a done deal now today. April Fool's was a week ago today. This is a true story. John Calipari is leaving Kentucky. He has signed a 5-year deal to go to Arkansas. Wow. And I don't know how many sports books are offering future numbers on next year's national title winner, but DraftKings, they are, and they were, before last night, they moved Arkansas from 70 to 40-1.
And they get to lose in the first round to a mid-major. You got your wish. Good for you. This is incredible. Kentucky's got to love this. They don't have to pay the $30 million buyout,
Yep.
And now they can get their pick of who they can get just about anybody now because this is
You would hope.
the top job. Yeah, so I love he's upstaged the championship game.
Yeah.
Which is a great game against a 1 seed and a 1 seed. So the chain of events here is wild. For whatever reason, SMU, in a surprising move, fires their coach. The USC coach leaves and takes the SMU job. Musselman leaves Arkansas to go to USC, and then apparently Beard and Tang said no. Mm-hmm. So then between Jerry Jones, Tyson Foods, and Walmart and all that money, they say, hey, let's give them $5 to $6 million a year in NIL money, and then we'll pay them $8 million a year or so with incentives to be the head coach. And then he goes, well, I don't feel wanted there and the writing's on the wall. I'll go to Arkansas.
Yeah, how about
and it happens.
Of all the gigs that he could have had over the years had he wanted to leave Kentucky, he was up for the Lakers job at one point.
Uh-huh.
He's going to go inside the SEC and go to Arkansas.
Yeah, he stays in the conference.
That's
good call. Yeah.
A stunner to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not have been shocked had, if we're talking about John Calipari taking a different job somewhere, or if Kentucky cut ties, but to go to Arkansas is the one where you're like, wow. That one was a sucker punch. Did not, just no chance did we see that one coming. According to sources, and you can absolutely buy into this, Calipari said he had a bad feeling about the situation at Kentucky and what the lack of support had grown to, and where the point where that was, he didn't feel he could stay on because he didn't feel wanted. The assets, this is a John Fanta tweet, the assets Arkansas put in place convinced him to make this move. Other sources saying he didn't think he had support and didn't feel wanted at Kentucky. Oh, the writing has been on the wall for several years now.
Oh, sure. You can't lose to St. Peter's and Oakland in the tournament with NBA players.
Yeah, this is another one, too.
This is one tournament win the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, unacceptable. Mm-hmm.
He could have had the Texas job a couple years ago, and fans were showing up at Rupp Arena saying, please take the Texas job and leave when they were failing year after year. And there was one fan I remember who security removed him from the arena, said, no, this has got to go. Can't be here with this sign.
Okay.
So
yeah.
that's how badly a lot of the fan base wanted him out.
Apparently he's going to shift in philosophy with go after the transfer portal, and he's armed with $5 million.
Right.
But then what happens? Remember, this was odd. And again, poor timing and read the room. When they lost to Oakland, and again in that embarrassing performance and another loss and going out in the first round, at the press conference after, he goes, oh, I'm so excited. You won't believe the class I have coming in. Mm-hmm. Well, now what happens? Which is a horrible thing to say after you have all these NBA players and you get beat by Oakland as a big favorite. But you know what? Are they all going to follow him to Arkansas? And that what's that going to look like?
They will all. Most of them, I think, probably all of them will follow him to Arkansas. And also, the writing evidently was on the wall for Calipari. He was talking or thinking about leaving Kentucky back in February. Evidently, according to sources, he really wanted the Ohio State job, but the timing obviously did not work out with the firing midseason. So he's been looking for, he knows, finally, as people are suggesting, he read the room. he was able to understand that not only, and by the way, like the pressure at being at Kentucky is unlike every other spot in the country with maybe the exception of 2 or 3 other spots. And he felt it every single day. He knew that he was now living up to expectations, all that talent. And as my brother, who was a lifelong Kentucky fan, said, nobody in the history of the sport has done less with that much talent. And that's exactly correct.
No, it's not even close.
No, he won one title, so people are going to call him a winner. But since then, it's been a total flop.
Yes. So now this is like Alabama football, Ohio State football. I mean, you can have your pick. You can go NBA. You can go the top. You can call Hurley. Then they will. You can call.
They will have a conversation with Dan Hurley.
Yeah, you have to. You can call Billy Donovan. You can call Jay Wright. Again, you don't have to pay the buyout.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Oates has an $18 million buyout, so I don't think that's going to happen.
That's the name.
Mark Few. I mean, you can call anybody you want now. Everyone's going to answer the phone.
The name that you're going to hear the most this morning and today is going to be Nate Oates, though. That's the guy that's getting pushed more than anybody. And it is an $18 million buyout. I don't know if they want to go down that path or not, especially when the names you listed here are all available without having to do the. So
how about the name you mentioned? Didn't you mention? Oh, yeah, was that Louis? You mentioned Pitino.
Oh, Rick Pitino. Yeah,
that's right. You did mention Pitino after they lost to Oakland. How about that?
Would you consider that?
Yes, if he's on the list. Yeah,
I think he's got to be on the list. I think you have the conversation with him. If you can't land any of these other guys, I'll put it this way.
Remember what happened in the Garden? I mean, they lost by 5 points to UConn in the Big East tournament.
Played them 3 different times this year.
Yeah, Pitino came right in and turned it around.
I'm not a wrestling fan, but evidently WrestleMania was awesome last night, like one of the best of all time. And they finally finished the story with Cody Rhodes. Kentucky could finish the story here with Rick Pitino. Bring him back, close out. He would never leave ever again. He'll get great players. It's not even close who the better coach is between Pitino and Calipari. And if he would ever win a national championship, then forget about it. And the point I'm trying to tell people about those who suggest Dan Hurley would never leave Connecticut, and maybe not. I mean, he could stay there for 25 years. He's a Northeastern guy, and he'll win evidently a zillion titles. However, and I did this last weekend with some friends who were in town. We had this conversation, and I asked them the last coach to win a title before Dan Hurley at UConn, and they immediately said Jim Calhoun and looked at me like I was an alien. I said, nope, you forgot about Kevin Ollie. And you want to know why? Because winning at UConn can be great, but it's also forgettable. Because it's UConn, no offense, great program. I'd say the best program this century, probably without question at this point. It's forgettable there. You win at Kentucky, and you are a legend immediately, and that never goes away. And I would still argue, like, Calhoun won more than Pitino did at Kentucky. Who's the bigger name? Who's the guy that you think of as a legendary status type figure? It's absolutely Rick Pitino at Kentucky, what he did, and not over Jim Calhoun at UConn. So if you win at Kentucky, because that program is different, it's upper echelon, it's top tier, it's numero uno, right? It's right there with Duke. And now that Coach K is no longer there, we'll see what that's going to be like. But that's why I think you have to have the conversation with Dan Hurley. He has to be number one. I think then the pecking order for me anyway would be Jay Wright number 2 if he wants to come out of retirement. Again, I don't know about the $18 million buyout with Nate Oates. That's on them if they want to go down that path.
What do you think about Billy Donovan?
Donovan's a guy you have to have the conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that he's turned out to be a pretty damn good coach in the NBA at that level?
Yeah.
With what he has done with the Bulls? And if UConn wins tonight, it's the first time we've had a repeat champion since Billy Donovan's Florida teams, and he built a juggernaut there. It was a football school. He took it over.
I also can't. I'm not that he maybe would want this because I'm sure he has a great job, and it reminds me of Chris Peterson. But Chris Peterson finally left after year after year after year saying no. He finally left and went to Washington. But if Mark Few, I mean, look at the talent that guy gets, and what he's done in turning Gonzaga into a national power in little Spokane, Washington, and 9 straight Sweet 16 appearances. So I mean, imagine if he goes there, what he could do.
Mark Few,
but he would be down the list though. Those other guys,
so,
I would have ahead of him. But
yeah, think about what Mark Few was able to do in recent years here by pulling the number 1 pick. Well, he was number 1 prospect, Chet Holmgren, out of Minneapolis, your neck of the woods. A year after Jalen Suggs went there and led them to the national title game, although they lost it, they were undefeated. The talent that he's had in the last 5, I mean, he was already like a giant in the industry, and he built that program into a monster, and it kept getting better with the talent. Now I would say that, talent-wise, last couple of years not been there, but he also brings in program guys who will stay 2, 3, 4 years, like Timmy just did, who was wildly popular and an awesome college basketball player. So he's able to develop guys. He'll bring in 2, 3, 4-year starters, and he has shown the ability to land like the number one prospect in the country or guys who are top 2, top 3 overall. It's a pretty good combination.
One name I did see, which is laughable to me, is Bruce Pearl. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes out early, blows a 10-point lead with 7 minutes left, and loses to Yale. And then when they did have that one tournament run, they should have lost in the first round in New Mexico State. I think that's all these other guys I definitely put ahead of Bruce Pearl.
What was your level of shock this morning to find out that it was a done deal? Paul, we were just in Phoenix.
9.5.
We were just in Phoenix yesterday, 2 days ago, doing a show from the DraftKings Sportsbook. This was not even, where was this?
Yeah.
This didn't exist.
Same level as Jinx Part 2, with apparently what the director said about I'm throwing 17 years of what I thought about out the window after this phone call. Can't wait to see what that is. It debuts in 2 weeks, right? But sure, I mean, it's got to be a 9.5, 10.
It is.
Because it was it's okay, it's going to be Beard or it's going to be Tang. And you mentioned the 30-1 now on Arkansas and Kentucky, 20-1 at draft.
I thought the reports when I saw them late last night were a joke. No joke, true. We'll get into tonight's title game up next. All you need to do is spend 30 seconds handicapping UConn games and you'd be a winner. I'll explain coming up next.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
For a limited time, offering 2 weeks of our exclusive betting splits for free. Sign up, VSiN.com/splits. It's updated with DraftKings odds every 5 minutes so you can see changes in all the action. You can check out future events as well. Limited time offer. Free 2-week access, VSiN betting splits, VSiN.com/splits.
It was a great first quarter, a tremendous first half yesterday between Iowa and South Carolina in the women's national title game. And then South Carolina too much talent, top to bottom. They're too deep, too many young stars, and they took over in the second half. And the fairy tale finish for Caitlin Clark in Iowa came to an end, and South Carolina made history by going undefeated and winning the national championship yesterday. No doubt, I'm going to guess the number when it comes out today is going to be close to 20 million people watch the game.
Oh, really?
They will have more than, because it was, Iowa cut it to 4 late.
The start helped.
Oh,
yeah, it was
absolutely
close and the
did.
start helped. Yeah.
Yep, and it will outdo tonight's national title game. That's because it was ESPN. That's my guess anyway.
Yeah.
Who knows? And I will tell you that it would have been nice for a program like Iowa. I think it would have been great for that team to win the whole thing because Dawn Staley has built an absolute juggernaut in South Carolina, and she can win 10 of these things if she stays there for the rest of her life.
I'd say 109-3 straight up last 112.
They are sick. But how many times will Iowa have the chance? A program like Iowa be in the mix here to win this whole thing and have the best player in the country. And then our buddy Mike Palm is from there. And just for all the fans. And they got to put up with Iowa football year round. And it just, come on. That's a suicide mission for 4 months out of the year watching their games. And then you had this treat to follow for, a good 4 years. Imagine if she said, I changed my mind. I'm going to go back for the final year.
She'd make $20 million.
Easy. She would be in every single. She'd be in more commercials than Travis Kelce.
She wouldn't even have to play professional basketball. I know. She could make 50. You could name her price.
Name it. Fill in the blank.
She's a machine. 4 years ago, I said this. I would have had alien invasion, like the aliens landed and took over. It's like the world shut down ahead of what happened with COVID. And I couldn't believe. If you tell me at any point during my life that women's college basketball would beat the NFL. Or every college football game, I would have said, get out of it. It's impossible. No way. Alien invasion.
Yeah.
I would have had ahead of it. I can't believe it. And what she's done, which I guess maybe I shouldn't be surprised because we saw the impact Steph Curry has had on basketball worldwide. Every kid wants to be Curry and shoot from way out in the parking lot. Everyone wants to be him and idolize Curry now. And now it came down to the women's game and the fascination with Clark, and as soon as she crosses half court, she's in range and bombs away. And this love affair and the ratings, and people can't get enough of it. And now we'll see. The big test will be, and I don't see why not, it won't continue to WNBA.
Right.
But it had all the makings to begin with, where they get off to that early 11-point lead, and she has it going early, but then they locked down defensively. They were the better team. It wasn't even close.
The freshmen off the bench are.
Yeah, Raven Johnson was great defensively. Tessa Johnson knocking shots down, the big gal down low. But you have 8 McDonald's All-Americans, and once they put the clamps down on her, and then what they did, I don't think they scored in the last 5 minutes of the game, what they did on Iowa.
Yep.
So they were just too good. And congratulations to Dawn to go undefeated and take her out. But what a 2-year run. And considering if she didn't get it done last year, we talk about a back-to-back-to-back and what Dawn's been able to do. But I'm shocked, I'm stunned, and I'm like you, I can't wait to see what the number is as well.
I honestly didn't even think South Carolina played like their A game yesterday. Offensively, certainly they did not, other than like Tessa Johnson and Phil Wiley how talented is she going to be? I mean, well, is she right now, but she's going to be so good in the next couple of years at South Carolina. But I don't think that was their A game on the offensive side of the court. And I think that kind of speaks to like this Iowa team, to me, one of the reasons why I never bet them on a future this year, and they were sitting around 13-14-1 for a lot of the year, is because they didn't really do a lot in the offseason. Like I thought they were going to have more transfers come in with the portal. Girls who wanted to play with Caitlin Clark, didn't really happen that much. But she carried this team. They were completely outmanned yesterday. She carried this team to the national title game, and for a half played with a team that is completely loaded to the gills from like 1 through 9. And it's not only the shooting, but the way that she operates with the basketball, some of the passes that she makes to get her teammates involved. She's always looking to push the pace and wants to be up and down. And you got to love that style. And I think to your point, Paulie, about this challenging football in the ratings, I think this is going to be a very common tweet or phrase that you're going to hear from people who operate sportsbooks across the country. Chris Andrews, who runs the South Point here in Las Vegas, tweeted out that the ticket count for Iowa, South Carolina was about the same as either of Saturday's Final Four games, and the handle was similar to a well-bet college football game. And as he said, women's college basketball has come a long way.
Now can the WNBA capitalize on this? Because
they will.
You have personalities, because you have her. You have Angel Reese, who's supposed to go top 10, and the endorsement she has off the floor. You have the South Carolina girl. So we'll see what can happen there. And the other, I'm not going to do this as far as these girls that played at UConn and saying, how does she handle adversity now? Because she's going to lose a lot of games when she comes into the league. And I know the dad was yelling at her about, shut up and stop complaining. She does this a lot about, look, where's the call? Sure. You get a ton of calls. Miss Clark, you get a ton of calls, and you blatantly pushed off a couple times, and they ignored it right in front of the South Carolina bench. So now how do you handle adversity when you're going to be on a bad team taking a ton of losses, and everyone's out to get you and shut you down, and you're probably not. I don't know if you're going to get calls night in, night out, but
sure.
that's for another time. But incredible career, and I'm astonished, nuts what she's done for women's college basketball in this turnaround, and something I didn't think it was possible.
It was must-watch television. Had to be part of it. A total phenomenon. So here's my prediction about what's going to take place once the WNBA season starts. That's going to be a little bit more than a month from right now. Mid-May-ish is when their season begins. And I am not a WNBA diehard. I watch the sport. I've been to the Aces games out here a couple times. It's fun. It's gotten a lot better over the years, in my opinion, much like the college level as well. My prediction is, think about that time frame, Paul, the calendar. You're going to have the playoffs starting to dwindle down in the NBA and the NHL, and you're going to have baseball going on and not a lot else. That's why I think the ratings in her early games anyway are going to be through the roof. But from a betting prediction, we have to talk about it. We have to be able to analyze their games, track the betting stuff.
Well, if it's going to get these kind of numbers, so yeah.
Well, this kind of number might be a bit much to ask, because I understand your point. But I also know a couple of bettors out here in Las Vegas that for a long time swore that you could bet this sport and you could beat it. And it's because back when it first started, not a lot of people were paying attention to it. one guy I know is a sicko. Like he'll have five of his TVs on the games on one night, and he's got action on all of them, and he follows it religiously. But it needs to be talked about when she's playing. And my guess is going to be and I am no WNBA expert. Paul's not. We're not going to pretend to be. But I think that you're going to see in this, like the content creator space, they're going to try to capitalize on the popularity of Caitlin Clark, and you're going to see nonstop like WNBA experts telling you what to bet, how to bet it, and they've probably never even watched the sport, and they would never admit that to you.
I'll give you the comparison.
They're going to have strong opinions. I just say be careful.
No, sorry. I'll give you the comparison. UFC. Yeah. The UFC came out of nowhere overnight. And it went from, who watches this? McCain called it cockfighting.
Right.
Who watches this stuff? And then it just blew up and exploded overnight. And then you had the Bonner Griffin fight, and then getting on the reality show. And the next thing you know, Chuck Liddell and all these guys are on Entourage and the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Sure.
So the key in the game was the rebounding. They killed them on the glass. It was 49-25. And the offensive rebounds were 17-5. So that was all she wrote. Just dump it down low, and it was stealing. Or just put back after put back. And then I thought they did a great job keeping their composure when the shots were going in early, and then they weren't getting calls. And then to get it where it was at halftime, you felt good about them in the third quarter, and then just locked them down in the last 4 or 5 minutes.
So here's South Carolina head coach Dawn Staley. She was talking a lot after the game. They interviewed her for several minutes, different times. She made it a point to congratulate Caitlin Clark.
I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport, and it just is not going to stop here on the collegiate tour. But when she is the number one pick in the WNBA draft, she's gonna lift that league up as well. So Caitlin Clark, if you're out there, you are one of the GOATs of our games, and we appreciate you.
It was a lot of fun, that tournament. Concurrently running with the men like every other day. I can't remember going back and forth being this excited, because it's always been about the men's tournament, and then I'll watch a little bit of the women's, but for all of it, every game, like every night, there was never any off time.
Yeah.
Up next, Paul's going to recap the weekend betting action and win some, lose some, and something again to watch tonight. 5 straight unders in this spot.
You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Welcome in. It is Follow the Money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard. Live today, Championship Monday, downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. This show is brought to you by DraftKings, and what a shocking development late last night in college basketball as John Calipari has taken the Arkansas job. No joke, 5 years out at Kentucky. On the day of the national title game, this story has overtaken the matchup, and we have 2 1 seeds playing, by the way, tonight, and 2 of the best 3 teams in college basketball all year long. And John Clay, what a week this is going to be in Lexington. Very busy man. Joins us from the Herald Leader in that great city this morning on the Progressive Guest Line. John, thanks so much for the time today.
Thanks for having me on.
Can you take us through the timeline, I guess, yesterday, because we were just in Phoenix and the Scottsdale area broadcasting on Saturday for the Final Four. No, not a peep of this, no word. And then like the timeline last night, when you first heard about it, and did you think, this is not real, this is a joke? And then maybe a couple of hours later, we were thinking, oh my God, this is actually going to happen.
I got a call from Bob Holt, a longtime Arkansas beat writer for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I got a call from Bob yesterday afternoon saying, it's hard to believe, but it's really picking up steam in Arkansas here in Fayetteville that it might be serious that Calipari is interested in the Arkansas job, that there's talks going on back and forth. And then it got to the point where, and I thought, wow, that seems like a long shot. And there were times last night we thought, well, they're talking, but are they really going to do anything? And I think it all goes back to, as Bob told me, John Tyson, the head of Tyson Foods, is a longtime friend of Cal's. whenever Kentucky played at Arkansas, Cal would usually have dinner with Mr. Tyson, and that John Tyson was talking to Cal and promising him full support and millions of dollars if he came to Arkansas to help him with getting recruits and with NIL money and that sort of thing. And then, but even then, I thought, I don't know, would John really leave Kentucky to go to Arkansas? But then overnight, apparently it got really serious on both sides. And as you guys said, it sure looks like he's going to be the next coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. The
chain of events, too, they got this situation to happen is nuts to me, with even Enfield leaving and then Musselman leaving. Did Beard and Tang also say no to the job? Were they offered the job, too, and both declined?
Well, I mean, you'd have to talk to the Arkansas people about that. I mean, that was the talk anyway, that was going on. I don't know, I guess it goes back to how long ago did John Tyson talk to Cal about, hey, would you be interested in coming to Arkansas? I don't know. And then of course you got AD and school administration, how many of those people working together. But John Calipari has always had relationships wherever he's been with he loves corporate leaders. He talks a lot about that. He's had longstanding relationships with the big money people. He had the same thing in Memphis with the Smith family, the head of Federal Express. Here in Kentucky, Joe Kraft, who's a big coal guy here in Kentucky, has been a longtime supporter and friend of John Calipari. I mean, he kind of cultivates those relationships. So I think the Tyson and when Bob told me that John Tyson was behind this and was a big player in this thing, that's what they were hearing. That made me think, well, maybe there is something to this.
Very good, fantastic insight, excellent. How frosty was the relationship in the last few years, and did he realize the writing was on the wall that he was coaching for his job the next year?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think as far as the relationship goes, his first 5-6 years here, really maybe even his first 10 years here, or it's going to be hard to match. It's going to be hard to whoever's successor is to match those. Oh yeah, especially the years of 2010 through 2015. But the last 4 or 5 years have definitely been a downturn. They lost the number 15 seed St. Peter's 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament in the first round. They lost this year to Oakland, a number 14 seed in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And Cal has said this himself. I mean, for Kentucky basketball, it's all about March. They want to win in the regular season. They want to win the SEC title. They want to win the SEC title. But what they really want is to hang banners in Rupp Arena, and they want that number 9 banner. And Cal has not only he's not even had them in the conversation for that the last few years. I mean, they went 9-16 in the COVID season of 21. They were a number 2 seed in 2022, but they lost to Stampeders. They were number 6 seed 2 years ago, lost to Kansas State in the second round, and then this year they lose to number 14 seed Oakland. So the fans here, were not happy with Cal. A lot of them were probably celebrating. A friend of mine just joked to me this morning, and there's a total eclipse going on here. So it's going to get dark. And then when it gets light, Calipari will be in Fayetteville. So, a lot of them are very happy to see him go. They were ready to move on to the next coach.
Are some saying, look, we better be careful what we wish for here?
Well, I think there are a lot of people who they may not be in the majority, but yeah, I mean, like I said, it's going to be really hard to match what Calipari did the first few years. And Cal, I think, got stubborn. He stuck to the formula of number 1 recruiting classes, one and done philosophy, which the fans here have never really even liked, even when they were winning. They think that Cal should be he works for UK, not the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it's going to be hard, and the program here needs to make some changes with facilities and support of that sort of thing as well. So it's not, just because you're changing coaches at Kentucky doesn't mean you're automatically going to go back up to the top tier and be playing in the Final Fours every year. They got to make the right choice. And I think they need to make some changes here as well as far as support and program and how they approach things too. It's going to be a combination of the two. But those first few years of Cal's are really going to be hard to match.
Yep, totally agree. Follow the money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, longtime columnist for the Lexington Herald leader, John Clay, with us here on the Progressive Guest Line. In a situation like this, John, personally, like I'm a big believer in you take every shot imaginable, right? You're not afraid to pick up the phone. You got to have the conversation. I think they wait until the game is over with tonight to call Dan Hurley and talk to his reps and to him. Is that a possibility, or is that kind of wishful thinking on the Kentucky side?
No, I think they'll swing for the fences. I think Dan Hurley. Of course, the name you always hear is Billy Donovan. Billy was an assistant here under Pitino. You obviously went back-to-back championships at Florida. Has been in the NBA for a while. I wonder where. I've always heard through the past few years that Billy really had no interest in returning to college basketball. Maybe even less so now with the landscape the way it is. But yeah, Hurley. I think Nate Oates. Personally, I would make Dan Hurley and Nate Oates. Those two guys tell me no. There's always been talk here that if Cal left or if Cal would leave, that Mitch Barnhart, the athletic director here, is really high on Scott Drew, is friends with Scott from back when Mitch was the head of the NCAA tournament selection committee, the year that Baylor won the national championship, that Scott Drew would be in play. I mean, you're going to hear those types of names. Some people are bringing up it's time to bring Pitino back, bring Rick Pitino back. I can't see that happening. But I do think that Kentucky will. I think they will definitely try to swing for the fences. Yes,
and they are handed this gift, right? Because the buyout was over $30 million. So now they can throw $8, $9, $10 million a year at whoever they want.
That's right. And Cal did not have a buyout. He doesn't owe Kentucky a dime. That was in the lifetime contract, as they called it at the time for Cal. He's supposed to be an ambassador for UK after he retired. I think this probably changes that. But yeah, right. I mean, there were a lot of people, who believed that if it wasn't for the $33 million buyout, that Cal, there would have been a separation between the two parties before now, that Kentucky would have forced them out. I mean, it's a little reminiscent, not quite the same as when Tubby Smith left. Tubby Smith won a national championship at Kentucky in 1998, went to 3 Elite Eights. But the last 2 or 3 years, they were really going downhill, did not have any kind of NCAA tournament success. And there was a lot of pressure on Tubby, and there was a lot of pressure from the administration to do something about Tubby. The next thing you know, Tubby Smith had left to go to Minnesota to be the coach of the Golden Gophers. This is a little different than that, but it's kind of the same scenario with Cal. So it would look like it's the best interest of both parties for there to be a separation. I think that's what's happened here. But from a financial aspect, you're right. Calipari is gone, and Kentucky didn't have to pay a cent for him to leave.
John, do they talk to Jay Wright?
I think they'll probably. I think Jay Wright would be on that list of when you're trying to hit a home run. But I don't think, from everything I've heard and from people that know Jay well, he doesn't have any interest in going back. He likes what he's doing, and he doesn't have any interest in getting back into it either.
So if they hear some no's, I brought this guy up a little bit earlier in the program, and they get, Dan Hurley says, no, I love it here at UConn. Billy Donovan doesn't want to leave NBA and go back to college basketball. They don't want to do the buyout on Nate Oates. Would they go down that path of maybe picking up the phone and talking to Chris Beard?
I sort of doubt it, just because of Chris Beard's background and what happened with him in Texas. That doesn't seem to me like anything that Mitch Barnhart would go for. Yeah. And not saying that Mitch. I mean, there'll be other people. Mitch will work with other people here, Dr. Capilouto and other people here, to make the decision about who the coach would be. I sort of doubt Chris Beard, but who knows if they have several people tell them no. Maybe Chris would be in consideration. I do think he's a really good coach, but I think in the circumstances of which he left Texas would probably keep him from being high on the list at Kentucky.
Totally fair. So I think we agree here, at least on this show, that Dan Hurley would be the absolute home run hire here. When do you think they make an announcement, and who would you make as the favorite right now to get the job?
I think they need to make the announcement as soon as possible, because I think there's a really good chance Cal has five let's put it this way, highly regarded recruits coming in, but there's already talk that those guys will leave with Calipari to go to Arkansas. That's what happened when he came from Memphis to Kentucky. He brought his Memphis recruits with him, including John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. So I think a similar scenario. And way the transfer portal now, they need to make a move as quickly as possible. I mean, obviously you need to hire the right coach, but you need to hire him as quickly as possible. Boy, it's really hard to say. I would say that Scott Drew is the favorite, just because that's the name that we have heard for the last couple of years. Okay. When really, maybe even since the St. Peter's game, that if things continue to go the way they are going and there ended up being a separation, he'd be the guy, but we'll see.
Well, you are in for a wild couple of days here, John. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. You can read John in the Kentucky Herald Leader. Follow him on X. He's at John Clay V. Up next, we'll recap the betting action from the weekend and win some, lose some.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
For a limited time, we're offering 2 weeks of our exclusive betting splits for free. Just sign up, vsin.com/splits. It's updated with DraftKings odds every 5 minutes. You can check out future events as well. Limited time offer, vsin.com/splits. Get your free 2-week access to the betting splits.
What a busy day this has turned into, and what a busy week it's going to be. Not only do we have the national title game tonight, obviously, but then the John Calipari news dropped last night out of nowhere, taking the Arkansas job. And joining us now on the Progressive guest line is John Crispin. Does a great job as an analyst on ESPN and also Westwood One. John, thanks so much for the time today. Your overall thoughts on what took place last night. I'm sure that you were probably stunned when you first saw the One report, thinking it was maybe even a joke.
Yes. Look, I was a little surprised, but then once I realized, okay, this is real, it makes sense. You know, it really does. It makes sense. You know, I think he's run out of equity there at Kentucky, and I understand why. Like, people have been sold things for a while. They've been sold, hey, if you put this money into the program, this is what you're going to get in return. Well, the ROI hasn't been that great, and the expectations at Kentucky are high, as they should be. And when you have talent year in, year out that's worth showing up for and worth buying tickets for, you expect to see that team play well into March, and that hasn't been the case. And I just think, look, the game is changing, and it's not changing in the sense that we're just paying players. It's not just about the name, image, and likeness. It's this portal stuff. It's this utter free agency. There's no continuity in college basketball, and that means you got to be a different kind of teacher. It's a different kind of teacher that can teach just enough to make you proficient at what you need to do, not want to do, but need to do, right? There are your must-dos. You've got to be a really good teacher of your must-dos. And then you have to be able to teach guys along the way how to play instinctually, how to find the game. And I think it's a different type of coach that's going to be able to succeed in this world. I really do. This is not a knock to old coaches, guys that have been around the game forever. But if you think about the game they came in under, it was a controlled game where it was about the plays you could set up and run and execute, and that's how you won games. And could you defend? Nowadays, it's like, how can you give guys just enough to be really good? That's it. Like, how can you train them like a European professional team where year in, year out, they're going to be completely different?
Yeah.
How can you get them to find it sooner in the season? How can you get them to adjust to a game on their own without having to overcoach it? I see Cal overcoaching a lot. I see Cal as the guy at times going, grab the ball. And it's like, well, of course, everybody wants to grab, but what else do we do with it? Like, there's a lot there. And I think he ran out of equity. And I think it's probably the right time for a fresh start. And it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for him to really get something rolling in Arkansas, and if it looks any different than what he did at Kentucky.
What would you do if you're making that decision at Kentucky?
I mean, probably call Nate Oates. Because here's the deal. You got to be fun. Like, in the world today, your best recruiter is how you play.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody that could get anybody, to me, it's the Nate Oates style, because every kid under the sun, even the big slow kids want to shoot threes. Even the 7-footers want to shoot threes. Everybody wants to be a guard. And, oh, by the way, the more threes you shoot, the easier it's going to be for a big to play. Why? Space. You got more space on the floor. So I think that's a great style, and I think he'd be able to get high-level players. And frankly, I think they'd win at a high level. I think he's actually a good teacher of the game, and a lot of his teaching is in practice. So when it comes game time, they just go out and ball. I think that's what makes them so much fun.
Yeah. We just had John Clay on from the Lexington Herald-Leader. He said that, in his opinion, Scott Drew is the leader as of right now in the clubhouse, or the favorite to get the job. What would you think of that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know if Scott Drew would really take that job.
Okay.
I mean, just understanding who he is and what he's about. And again, like, this means absolutely nothing, because who you think someone is and what you think they're all about, that often changes in the world today pretty quickly. But I just feel like Scott Drew's in the perfect place for Scott Drew. I think it's a terrific program. It's a good, smaller community. It just kind of suits him. At the same time, do you want the pressure and expectation to have to do whatever it takes necessary to win at Kentucky? I don't know if you want to do that if you're Scott Drew. If you're a culture guy that built that program the way he did, I don't know. Now, I'm weird, though, because I would be someplace that I liked and I would never leave. I have this weird thing that most don't have. It's called contentment. And I understand that's what makes guys competitive. I just think Kentucky's such a unique job. Like, it's almost as if the coach has to be bigger than the program for it to be the right coach. And it's a weird thing to say, but like St. John's, I said the same thing about St. John's. Like, you got to hire someone bigger than the program for it to be, worth hiring somebody. Same goes for Indiana. The only way they get out of bed is if they get Brad Stevens. You know what I mean? It's like every time that job comes up, they say somebody like, "Oh, Brad Stevens."
Yep.
I'm like, why don't you throw friggin' Phil Jackson in the mix? Like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The level of like a local narcissism when it comes to your program. It's like, well, what is the reality and what is the real perceptions of that job in the world today? That's the other part that we don't think about. How much has the world changed with NIL and the portal and wherever the heck we're going with it, which is likely in the wrong direction. And then what does that job look like then? And can you really be competitive year in, year out to the level that Kentucky and Kentucky fans expect? That's. I wonder if it's even as good of a job as we think it is.
Good answer. Very interesting thoughts there. Are you going to lose your mind if they expand or when they expand the tournament? 72, 78 teams?
Yeah, I'm only going to lose my mind because I feel like it's just filled with cowardice, right? It's like, hey, we were trying to convince you for so long that we're not about the money, but now business is done above the table. We'll just accept that it's about the money, and we'll try to get even more of it. No, by the way, I think a big piece of this has to do with the likelihood that we're going to have super conferences. And we know this is going to happen. It's going to happen in football, and whatever happens in football, basketball wants to be like football because football's king, and everybody wants to shoot for the king. Like, this is what we do. So basketball is going to end up with a bunch of super conferences. Well, it makes sense that they would expand the tournament to have more teams from the super conferences because we're not comfortable with 10, 11, 12, 13 teams from one conference being in the NCAA field. So what do? We expand the tournament. I think that's just a natural progression to things. I also think it's silly and nonsensical, but it likely leads us back to probably a more rational place down the road. It'll take us a while to get there, but eventually we'll get to the point where we go, okay, wait a second. The tournament was good where it was. Money was perfect. Not everybody has the value that they think they have. We're going to get back to who we once were once we realize that all these crazy endeavors, the things that we're changing and trying to take on, they just fail miserably in the end.
Yeah, well said. Follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, John Crispin, analyst for ESPN and Westwood One Sports during the tournament. He's on the Progressive Guest Line. We have about 3 minutes here, John, remaining. We've been, trying to make a case against UConn, like playing in a close game. Like, can they even play in a close game? And it's just been all for naught, right? Will they play in a close game tonight? Can Purdue actually make this interesting?
I think it'll be interesting for a while. I could see it being interesting for 30, 35 minutes. The problem is UConn is so good in late game situations. They're so good at just spacing you out and finding whatever one of the five options is best. They're really good at that. And I think the thing is, just consider this. Purdue's strength is obviously Zach Edey. Like, that's their go-to. That's a tougher adjustment to start the game. Where UConn's going to have to adjust to this mountain of a man that's on the floor, and then all the things that come off of that, that's a little bit longer of an adjustment, whereas Purdue's got to adjust to good balance on the floor. That's an easier adjustment within the game. Now, once the game's played, that cumulative effect of having to defend 5 around the perimeter, outside in, the way UConn can attack you, and then keep guys off the glass the way that UConn rebounds from the guard position on the offensive end, that cumulative effect, I think, will take over. And then at the end, UConn just is so good in late game situations, and that's where I trust them the most. It's probably like a 10, 12-point game, in my opinion, but what do I know? I've been wrong the whole tournament.
Why, have you been trying to make a case against UConn as well?
No, I had them pick to win, but it's pretty much every other choice that I made, I guess. Yeah. There's way too much logic and reason applied to the NCAA tournament. Don't do that. Just be emotional. Why not?
There you go. That's and go with your heart more than anything else. I mean, let's be fair here, though. The Alabama game was, to your point, right? That was 56 apiece with 12 minutes to play.
Yep. That's the way it goes. And the thing is, that game created a rhythm that eventually UConn found. And once they found it, they understood the moments where they needed to stop, and they understood the moments where they needed to continue the pace, right? There are times where the tempo and the pace is great, and you say, oh, wow, this favors maybe Alabama. Well, it's like once your opponent finds it, they know how to take you out of it and adjust the game. It's pretty remarkable to see UConn play. I got to tell you that.
Yeah, you can follow John on X. He's at John Crispin ESPN. That was an awesome spot today, John. Pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for your time today. Enjoy the game tonight.
Hey, my pleasure. You guys too.
Thank you.
There you go.
Well
He
done.
joined us on the Progressive Guest Line.
No, he's right. Those are all excellent points. At the end about UConn and at the beginning about how great is this job. Well, the money's nice.
That's
but
wild.
Am I better off at a Waco or am I better off? I mean, I have to go to the Elite Eight every year,
right?
Or a Final Four. It's like it's championship or bust, Final Four or bust.
Unique spot to be in.
Yeah.
Follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Bruce Marshall on the show up next. One more appearance for the final game tonight. His thoughts overall on Calipari going to Arkansas, and what does he make now of the number where it's at tonight between UConn and Purdue?
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Get ready to tee it off with a special Masters edition of Long Shots this Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelly Bidlin break down the field, analyze best bets and props. Whether you're a seasoned golf bettor just getting into the game, the expert panel will provide insights and strategies to help you make informed betting decisions. Long Shots Tuesday, 11 p.m. Don't miss out. VSiN.com/Masters. One more go around with Bruce Marshall at Bruce A. Marshall on X, CBS Sports Line. Come on to talk national title game. He have his thoughts and opinions on the game. First of all, you're around SEC country as well. How about this news? Calipari has upstaged the championship game. Can you believe this as he takes the Arkansas job?
I know. Can you believe that? By the way, quick clarification on my part for Ron Flatter and his fans. Ron, of course, knows Secretariat lost those 3 races in 73. He's one of the best horse race guys I know, and he did once interview Bo Derek, for which I always envy him. The closest I could get to Bo Derek is if there's an empty middle seat next to me on a Southwest flight and she happens to sit in it. Only the last time that happened, a guy who looked like Flatter sat next to me. So anyway, there you go. Yeah, Calipari, that came out of nowhere because I had talked to guys who were very tight in with Arkansas. They were thinking Chris Beard was going to be the guy, and they had a whole scenario where Beard would leave and Will Wade would probably go in there to Ole Miss to replace Beard.
Yeah.
This Calipari thing happened kind of late. We did hear it would wait until the weekend was done, that even Keats's name was one that was brought up. But Calipari, this was a late development. Nobody I knew down there mentioned about that until that news broke last night. So that really is out of left field, but it's going to happen, it looks like.
This really is wild how it's what have you done for me lately? Because apparently with the boosters that matter, they were sick of Musselman, who just went Elite Eight, Sweet 16 in one bad year. But now you're going to a guy who's had one tournament win in the last 4 years and underachieved time and time again with NBA talent. So, like Mitch said earlier, be careful what you wish for. Or are you saying the same thing maybe about Kentucky? Now they have a big up, but certainly Kentucky's got a ton of money behind them and can throw 8, 9, 10 million a year at whoever the guy's going to be.
Well, you're right. And what we had heard this year, too, is there were some nil issues at Arkansas this year. And that was one of the reasons that team had a very uneven performance pattern. And that sort of contributed to Muss, although, his shelf life has, been about 4 or 5 years at a school anyway.
That's true.
Calipari, I can understand Calipari wanting to do this because the pressure had built up so much at Kentucky. And he gets to start the contract clock all over again. But you're right. I mean, his teams have been underachieving a lot in the last few years, so and has not achieved as much as Musselman's teams did. So we'll see how that works out. Of course, the opening at Kentucky is going to be the big news here, and where that goes, various directions, but it'll be a big name they go for, and they will stop at nothing to get the guy they want. I'm thinking it might be Bruce Pearl because I don't think Donovan will say yes, but we will see.
What do you think about Nate Oates?
It could be Oates too. They're going to have to really break the bank because Oates is getting paid a lot now at Alabama, and I'm not sure he would want to go, but maybe he does. I mean, you go from a football school to a definite basketball school, so I think Oates would do it. But I have a feeling it would be harder to pry Oates away than it would Pearl. Just my own thought, but Oates would be there. Oates, Scott Drew, they will call Billy Donovan up. I don't think he would say yes. But it'll be in that that sort of caliber coach.
All right, thoughts on the game tonight, and we mentioned the all show long here about the unders since they had the Final Four here, and in 2017, all 5 games the second half have gone under. What do you make of the total 145.5?
Yeah, that stuff, Paulie, that's staring us straight in the face here with these unders. And the second half unders, the UConn unders, it's now, for the full game, that's now 6 straight for UConn. It's 9 of the last 10 this season. And it's the defense, and it's not just Klingon. Of course, we know what he does and how he can close down the key. It's all this length they have out there in the wings. I mean, all these guys, 6'4" to 6'8", when they put Karaban out there like they're going to do tonight, it's just hard to shoot over these guys, and they are really in your face. And I think that's really the strength of this UConn defense. They really match up very well out on the perimeter. And Purdue's not really that big across the perimeter. So, and the fact Klingon will probably be able to they can stick him. He's not going to need any help against Edey. And this sort of negates that Purdue thing that Matt Painter did this year, just spread the floor with shooters around Edey the same way Mike Budenholzer did with Giannis a few years ago to win the NBA title. Giannis and Edey aren't the same player, but the concept is the same. The key, I think, tonight is going to be if Klingon gets in foul trouble, as capable as Samson Johnson is as a backup, he is not going to be able to handle Edey by himself. So that would change the dynamic a bit. And so that's something you'd watch quick whistles. I remember a final once when the big publicized big man battle. It was Ewing against Olajuwon in the '84 final, Houston-Georgetown, and fouls. Olajuwon got in foul trouble really, really quick, and it changed the whole course of that game. So that's the one X factor I'd watch at that, and that's the only thing I think that might slow UConn down if that happened. But it could. We'll see.
Okay. So best bet overall on the game tonight would be
under,
what?
I would say under, and maybe even, wait for that second half under. But for right now, for the full game, under mid 140s. I mean, UConn games, even Alabama couldn't get over the other day.
Yeah.
Under would be my first call. Maybe a slight way. If you can get 7.5 on Purdue, this team is 34-4 this year. If you can get that, I think that might be secondary here. But under would be my first call.
Great job, sir. Thanks for coming on during the entire season. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Enjoy the game tonight, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Be good.
That's under the radar, no doubt. Everyone's talking about the 11 in a row straight up in ATS in the tournament, rightfully so. But that's every game has gone under, and 9 of 10. 9-1 under run for the game with UConn.
During the commercial break, I took Purdue +4. So shop around. You can find that out there. I thought John Crispin had some good
First
points.
half.
What did I say?
You said +4, but...
First half.
First half, yeah.
Yeah, first half.
Yeah.
What John Crispin said 15 minutes ago made a lot of sense, and it's kind of the same thing with the Alabama game from Saturday, is where Bama hung with that team for a lot of it. Again, that's tied at 56, 12 minutes to play. UConn still covered. Just think, so at some point they go on runs, they figure the team out. Like, this could be a tricky matchup because of Edey down low, and you're going to get an inflated number here because the game is 6.5 or 7 right now. Maybe there's a 7.5 to pop. But because of UConn's power rating overall, Ken Palm makes the game 2. Torvik makes the game 2. Tyler Shoemaker here at VSiN makes the game 3. You can grab the +4 at first half. I don't know. This seems like it's a really, really big number for the first 20 minutes. So I'll take my chances here where it might be difficult for UConn to get a read on Edey right away in the game. And then, it's closer before they actually pull away and make adjustments because Hurley's so good at that. You got to see this. So you went as Bobby Petrino for Halloween.
Yes.
Okay. And it was a great outfit. And you looked exactly like the guy. So this is what Paulie looked like. Exactly like Bobby Petrino. You had the old SEC football hat?
No, that's All-State Sugar Bowl.
All-State Sugar Bowl. Okay,
yeah.
I can't see
after
from
the
here.
accident. All-State Sugar. I actually found the exact hat.
Arkansas football, the neck brace, the bloody face.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, right?
Uh-huh.
Whoever did this is unbelievable because that's John Calipari as Bobby Petrino in the neck brace.
That is good. They're different over there. The woo, pig suey.
Oh, yeah.
They do all that. The press conference is going to be something. I can't wait. And he is, say what you want about him, he's a salesman.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll kill it. He'll win the press conference now. He'll lose to a mid-major early in the tournament, but he'll win the press conference. So this is theater of absurd here. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
that is awesome. Coming in. Now, it's funny because of now Petrino he left the Falcons in the middle of the night and took the Arkansas job.
He did.
That's what he did.
So almost similar there.
Oh,
Or came out of nowhere. Didn't see it happening.
He left like a note to his players. I don't even think he said goodbye. Petrino. So
I wonder when more books put up numbers for next year's national championship, where do they open up Arkansas? Again, DraftKings had 70-1 last night. And as soon as this move was made, they bumped him down to 40. I would take 70 in a heartbit.
Sure. Well, he's going to get all those guys are going to follow him.
I talked about
plus
this
he's got
earlier in the show,
he's got a $5 million, $6 million NIL to play with.
He's going to have equal talent that he's had at Kentucky over the years, and you could never ever find that number when he was the coach. So it's a numbers thing here. That's all it is. But I'm guessing that most books, when they reopen, maybe that's today or tomorrow on this, they're not going to open Arkansas 40-1 or 50-1. I don't think.
Yeah.
All right. What are we talking about tomorrow on the show?
UConn wins and covers.
Okay.
Repeat, yeah. Why not?
So it's going to be this sets up the year in basketball of all chalk then.
Right.
South Carolina, UConn, and then we'll see what the NBA, maybe Nuggets and Celtics.
Hurley wins, and he's asked about the Kentucky job.
And he takes it. Oh, boy. A numbers game is next. You can listen at vsin.com.